Stop scrolling. Because what I'm about to reveal is the biggest bombshell in Sister Wives history. A judge has just handed down a final verdict that left Robyn Brown in tears, Christine Brown in triumph, and Kody Brown angrier than ever. The court found Robyn liable for fraud and ordered her to pay Christine an eye-popping $750,000 in damages. For years, the faithful had blamed Robyn for controlling Kody, manipulating money, and receiving special treatment while the other wives were left to struggle. People speculated, bickered, and gossiped. But now, it's not speculation any longer. It's fact. The judicial system itself has opened up and exposed Robyn, and Christine is at last vindicated. The courtroom was charged. Christine's eyes shone with relief. Robyn sat frozen in shock, and Kody almost exploded with anger. The balance of power in that fractured family shifted in an instant, and with that single verdict, the entire legacy of Sister Wives changed forever. Everything stopped in that moment, he said. The chatter in the courtroom, the shuffling of papers, even the steady ticking of the clock on the wall seemed to fade into silence. Everyone waited with bated breath as the judge was about to make a decision that would not only break reputations, but also reform the narrative of one of reality TV's most scandalous families. The atmosphere in the room was electric. Sitting on one side was Christine Brown, her back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap, as if preparing herself for the words she had been waiting years to receive. She wasn't fighting only for money today. She wasn't fighting even solely for herself. She was fighting for her children, for the years of being ignored, for the unspoken sacrifices she made when she was pushed aside for Robyn. Her fans sat behind her, their faces radiating hope, hoping that finally the court would see something they had all hoped for a long time, that Christine had been unjustly treated. Across the courtroom, Robyn Brown sat, the so-called favorite wife, the woman who had established an image of being the peacemaker of the family. But today, that image seemed to be in tatters. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes puffy from tears, and she clutched a tissue as if it were her last lifeline. For years she had succeeded in establishing herself as innocent, misunderstood, even victimized. But the testimony that had unfolded over weeks of trial had taken away much of that fantasy. And now, as the judge looked to deliver her verdict, she appeared like a woman about to see the downfall of all she had worked so meticulously to create. And then, of course, there was Kody Brown, the patriarch, the man at the eye of the storm. His jaw was set, his face reddened with pent-up tension, and his eyes jumped from the judge to Robyn. He was no longer a self-assured leader, but a cornered man, unable to stem what was about to overwhelm him. He had always been the string puller, the decider, the one who chose who would have his time, his affections, his resources. But today it counted for nothing. Here in this courtroom his authority was irrelevant. The onlookers, reporters, fans, inquisitive townspeople, leaned forward, pens and cameras at the ready. Today was not just another day in court. Today was history. The judge's voice cut through the silence. Smooth, even, commanding. Each word rang off the walls as he summarized the case. The evidence, the witness statements. He testified about the accounting records that indicated money was being directed into Robyn's accounts, about the discrepancies in the accounts, about Christine's fortitude to come forward on these points. He recognized the other witnesses' accounts, particularly Janelle's, who had validated the course of deception. And finally, with an impenetrable conviction, he handed down the verdict. Robyn Brown was guilty of fraud. The courtroom gasped. Some individuals shook their heads. Others murmured hysterically to each other, as reporters rushed to scribble down the words. The verdict was unmistakable. Robyn was directed to pay Christine a whopping $750,000 in damages. For Christine the moment was crushing. Tears welled up in her eyes. Not tears of sorrow, but tears of relief. Her lips tensed, trying to suppress the flood of feelings. But the corners of her mouth wobbled. For years she had been discouraged from complaining, told her fears were overblown, her emotions irrational. But now the law had legitimized her hurt. This was not just a financial win. This was a moral win. On the other side of the aisle, Robyn broke down. She wept openly as she shook her head, saying, "No, no, this isn't right." The woman who had been so untouchable, shielded by Kody's favoritism and her controlled image, was suddenly revealed. No more excuses. No hiding behind Kody's control. Now the world perceived her not as the victim that she so conveniently played, but as the practitioner of deception. Kody's response was explosive. He pounded his fist on the table, growling incoherently under his breath. His cheeks flushed red with fury, his muscles clenched in frustration. To him, this wasn't simply about Robyn losing. It was about his control slipping away from his grasp. For the first time in his existence, his position as head of the family meant nothing. The judge had ruled, and all the shouting and finger-pointing in the world wouldn't make a difference. And it wasn't just the Browns who were affected. Viewers all over the globe, glued to social media live updates, exploded with their own reactions. Christine's fans swamped the internet with congratulations and relief messages, declaring her brave, strong, and deserving of every cent. Robyn, on the other hand, was the object of widespread condemnation. Memes, hashtags, and commentary cast her as the villain, the one who finally got punished. But most of all, perhaps, was the realization in that instant of what this verdict represented. It wasn't about the $750,000. It wasn't about Robyn and Christine. It was about the destruction of a story the Browns had fought to present over a decade, that of cohesion, faith, and mutual sacrifice. In a single verdict, that myth was destroyed. The cracks in the foundation of the family, so long camouflaged behind written-on smiles and edited for television episodes, were now exposed for all the world to view. It was the day Christine stood tall at last. She was no longer a wife relegated to the side. She was a survivor, a victor, a fighter. She had battled the strongest forces of her existence: Robyn's sway, Kody's favoritism, public opinion, and emerged victorious. This was the day Robyn's cover came crashing down. The sympathy she had previously received, the myth of being misunderstood, did not exist anymore. Instead, there was the picture of a woman trapped in lies, made to pay the price for her deception. And for Kody, this was the day his grip on power slipped. The judge's words served as a reminder that regardless of how much power he believed he had over his wives, his family, or even over the show, the truth would prevail. And when it did, there was nothing even he could do to prevent it. As the gavel fell and the court adjourned, the courtroom rang out with voices, but the Browns remained in stunned silence. Christine sank back, a combination of relief and victory spreading over her. Robyn cried into her hands, and Kody flung himself out, his fury overflowing. That was the day the Browns' world fell apart. That was the day Sister Wives evolved from a television drama. It was a tale of justice, betrayal, and redemption, and it was merely the start of what would be known as the most surprising chapter in the family's saga. To know how we arrived, let's start from the start. The Brown family always sold people a vision of harmony, faith, and shared sacrifice. But in private, that harmony was disintegrating. Christine had long suspected that finances weren't being shared fairly. She worked tirelessly to provide for her kids, but somehow there never seemed to be enough for her household. Meanwhile, Robyn's family always seemed comfortable. Her kids had new things, her home looked well kept, and her expenses always seemed covered. Christine started to see suspicious transactions. Funds described as family expenses being funneled into accounts controlled by Robyn. Initially, Christine attempted to dismiss it, telling herself there must be a mistake. But when the pattern kept up, her doubts increased. Finally, Christine was certain this wasn't mismanagement or favoritism. It was dishonesty. Funds intended for the overall family were being diverted, and Robyn was the focus of it all. Christine took the biggest risk of her life. She sued. It wasn't greed. It was about justice, truth, and standing up for herself at last. After years of being taken lightly, every betrayal has a starting point. And for Christine Brown, the roots of this explosive courtroom battle were sown years earlier, long before attorneys, judges, and evidence. It began within the walls of a family that once taught love, faith, and togetherness, but instead concealed cracks so deep that they would soon burst into the open. The Brown family was not your ordinary family. They were a polygamous family for all to see in front of millions of television viewers. With patriarch Kody Brown, 4 wives and almost 20 kids between them, they sold themselves as the trailblazers of plural marriage. Sister wives showed the world they were a family who succeeded at polygamy, sharing homes, duties, and above all money. But behind the smiles and dinner with the family, Christine started to see cracks. Initially, it was little things subtle but apparent. When the family shared money for groceries or bills, Robyn's side always had a bit more than enough. Her children had new clothes, while Christine's children sometimes got by on hand-me-downs. Robyn's house had new furniture, while Christine struggled to keep basic household expenses paid. Christine didn't want to be jealous. She didn't want to think that Kody was playing favorites with one wife over the others. But the habit became impossible to overlook. Christine was accustomed to sacrifice. She had devoted decades of her life to the raising of children, cooking dinner, cleaning, and keeping her side of the family afloat. She would frequently place her own needs last, believing in the code of family togetherness. But whereas Christine was pinching every penny, Robyn never appeared to have a problem. Vacations, haircuts, and high-end excursions cropped up in Robyn's life with little to explain. Christine's kids began to ask questions. Why do Robyn's kids get this? Why do they always have new things? Why don't we have enough for that? Those innocent words pierced Christine painfully. She could no longer pretend otherwise. There was favoritism, and it wasn't just emotional. It was financial. Everything changed the day Robyn joined the family. Prior to her, there was a balance, albeit imperfect, between the wives. But when Kody married Robyn legally, everything changed. That union brought not only a greater emotional commitment from Kody, but also legal benefits that the other wives did not enjoy. Robyn persuaded Kody to take in her kids from her former marriage, something that needed a lot of financial investment. The family was informed it was a group sacrifice, an investment in love and harmony. But with Christine, it became apparent that the adoption was the tip of the iceberg when it came to Robyn's financial influence. When Kody's attention began to turn increasingly to Robyn, so did the finances. Checks for Robyn's household were paid first. Loans were taken in ways that seemed to benefit Robyn more than anyone else. Christine's household, on the other hand, felt neglected. Christine wasn't a financial expert, but she was observant. She noticed deposits going into Robyn's accounts that didn't match the story being told. Money labeled as family expenses would disappear without explanation. Christine started keeping notes, quietly tracking patterns. She noticed that whenever there was talk of investing in the family's businesses, Robyn had an outsized influence on where the funds went. Projects that could have helped Christine or Janelle were sidelined, while Robyn's ventures were pushed forward. At one point, Christine confronted Kody, asking why Robyn's needs were always prioritized. His answer was dismissive. Robyn needs this right now. You'll understand. But Christine didn't get it. Not then, never. Anything but money. It was about message. Each dollar vanished into Robyn's home and delivered the same message to Christine. You don't count as much. Your children don't count as much. Christine felt like she was invisible. No matter how much she worked, no matter how hard she gave, it wasn't good enough. She had to remain quiet, had to accept her position, and had to believe that Kody was looking out for everyone's best. But Christine knew the truth inside. Kody wasn't doing that. Kody was thinking about Robyn. And as Christine grew resentful, Robyn's influence only increased. She was the gatekeeper, the one Kody consulted about almost everything. If Christine complained, her complaints were dismissed. If Robyn made a request, it was granted. The last straw occurred when Christine was aware that the financial burden wasn't merely inconvenient, it was damaging. Her kids were losing out on things because there wasn't enough cash, while Robyn's family prospered. Christine sat at the kitchen table, bills in front of her. She needed to determine how to pay which ones and wait on the rest. Robyn posted a picture of going shopping, laughing with children across town. The disparity was more than she could handle. Christine felt the pressure of years crushing her. She recalled each time she had been instructed to wait patiently. Each time she had been assured Robyn's needs would pass. Each time she had been assured to have faith in Kody's guidance. And in that moment, something within her snapped. She knew she couldn't keep quiet any longer. This wasn't jealousy or competition. It was about right. Funds that were meant to care for all the wives equally had been diverted. And she had evidence. Christine was aware of the danger of suing Robyn. It meant bringing private family business out into the open. It meant suing not only Robyn, but Kody as well. It meant being attacked by fans who might not get it. But Christine also understood that she had no other option. For far too long, she had borne the weight of secrecy. Now was the time for battle. She started amassing evidence, testimonies, banking records, texts, anything that might prove the truth. She contacted lawyers, told them her tale, and prepared herself for the tempest. The suit wasn't about money. It was about taking back her voice. It was about declaring, "I count. My children count, and you can no longer get away with acting otherwise." When Robyn heard about the suit, she was upset. At least she said she was. She maintained Christine was misinterpreting everything, that the financial transactions were harmless, that she had not done anything wrong. She cried. She begged. She portrayed herself as a victim. But Christine had already heard it all. For years, Robyn had been the wife who was misunderstood, the woman who didn't mean to do any harm, the woman who just wanted the peace. But the proof spoke louder. The lawsuit tore the Browns apart even more. Janelle quietly stood behind Christine, confessing she too had witnessed abnormalities. Meri kept her distance, refusing to take sides in public, but fully recognizing the tension. And Kody, he was angry. He viewed Christine's suit as a betrayal, an assault on his control, and most of all, an assault on Robyn. But Christine didn't give in. She had already lost too much. This wasn't about money. It was about her dignity, her children's future, and the truth that had been kept hidden for far too long. When the case finally went to court, the world was paying attention. Fans obsessed, dissecting each rumor, each minute detail. Christine's admirers celebrated her strength, while Robyn's supporters contended that she was being unfairly maligned. But hidden from the din, the reality was plain. Christine had hit her breaking point. She'd survived years of financial disparity, manipulation, and disregard. And now she was ready to reveal it all. The seeds of betrayal had finally sprouted into a tempest. And as Christine stood ready to go up against Robyn in court, she knew one thing for sure. Regardless of what happened, her silence was at an end. When the case was tried, the theatrics were never seen before on television. Christine's lawyers went into court with concrete proof, bank statements, financial transactions, and text messages that directly implicated Robyn's manipulation of family money. Christine's testimony was emotional and raw. She testified about the years of asymmetry, about seeing her children do without, while Robyn's family flourished. Her voice caught occasionally, but what she said was powerful. She wasn't fighting for herself alone. She was fighting for the dignity that had been withheld from her. The biggest shock came when Janelle did testify. She supported Christine, stating she too had noticed suspicious financial activity. Janelle explained how she was regularly pushed to the side, her voice disregarded as Robyn and Kody made the big money decisions. Her testimony gave Christine's case undeniable gravity. Robyn, defending herself, cried on the stand. She claimed it was all an error, that she only followed Kody's instructions, and never sought to offend anyone. But the facts didn't lie, nor did Christine's and Janelle's testimonies. The image depicted was loud and clear. Robyn had abused the system. The day had finally arrived. The hushed whispers of deceit, the closed-door arguments, and the constant speculation among fans. Everything had led up to this. The Brown family's dirty laundry was no longer rumor. It would be played out on a courtroom stage for everyone to witness. The Flagstaff courthouse was humming with excitement. Reporters filled the steps. Sister Wives fans had their phones aloft in hopes of catching a glimpse. And photographers snapped madly as Christine Brown entered the building, her head held high. Wearing a plain but elegant outfit, she entered not as a victim, but as a woman prepared for justice. And just minutes thereafter, the crowd erupted once more as Robyn Brown stepped in, flanked by Kody. Robyn fidgeted nervously, her eyes scanning about, while Kody attempted to cover his rage with a phony bravado. To observers the lines were drawn. Christine versus Robyn, truth versus lie, autonomy versus manipulation. Inside the courtroom, tension hung so heavy you could feel it pinning you down. The case was not merely about fraud. It was about betrayal,
favoritism, and years of hidden
resentment. Christine, quote, "Sit team wasted no time." They laid out the foundation of her claim. Over the course of several years, funds meant to be shared equally among all the wives had mysteriously funneled into Robyn's accounts. Bank statements, transaction histories, and internal communications painted a damning picture. One lawyer spoke firmly, his words echoing in the room. "This case is not about jealousy, it's about responsibility." Mrs. Brown placed her family finances under a system shared by everyone, only to find out that Robyn Brown betrayed that trust. "We are going to establish that Christine and her children were denied their rightful share as Robyn indulged in luxuries at their cost." The jurors leaned forward, eyes narrowing as the evidence came alive on a big screen. Charts, underlined bank statements, and receipts formed a timeline that couldn't be denied. Christine's detailed notes, written years ago, were her most powerful tool. She had dates, figures, and details that sealed the case virtually airtight. When Christine testified, the whole room changed. She was no longer just a reality television persona. She was a mom, a woman who had lived for years in silence, at last speaking out. Her voice shook initially, but then strengthened. "For years I was instructed to have faith. I was told that all was equal, that we were all one big happy family, but I began to notice the disparity between my house and Robyn's. My kids didn't have things they required. Yet Robyn's house prospered. I thought maybe I was losing it for a while. But then the evidence mounted. I could no longer turn a blind eye. This is not about money, it's about equity. It's about my children." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Even those who had disbelieved Christine couldn't help but hear the stark sincerity in her tone. Then Robyn took her turn. She came into the witness stand with tear-filled eyes, grasping a tissue, her voice shaking. She framed herself as being in the wrong, that the transactions were legitimate expenditures, debts, or payments that Christine didn't quite grasp. "I never intended to cause harm to Christine," Robyn cried. "I love her. I love all the family. If money was deposited into my account, it was for the benefit of all. I don't know why she believed I was attempting to steal." But although her tears swayed some, Christine's attorneys were ready. They had receipts for shopping binges, vacations, and high-end purchases, items that obviously benefited only Robyn's family. The jury saw Robyn's excuses fall apart. Christine, quote, "S lawyer sat forward during cross-examination, his voice biting but disciplined. Brown, are you saying to this court that a $12,000 jewelry purchase was a family need?" Robyn stuttered. "It was for a special occasion. Kody wanted, and how much was the private school fee for just your kids?" While Christine's were informed that there wasn't enough money. "Was that for the family as well?" Robyn stopped, the tears she was crying unable to conceal the awkward quiet that ensued. The jury took notes. The audience whispered. Kody shifted restlessly, glaring at Christine as though she was the issue, not the evidence on their table. When Kody testified, the theatrics were at their highest. His tone was defensive, his voice aggressive. He attacked Christine as bitter, envious, and vengeful. "She's attempting to ruin our family. She's spinning things, making it appear as if Robyn's the bad guy, when actually Christine just couldn't handle the family situation. This is revenge, not fact." But Christine's attorneys were prepared. Surely they brought messages and emails where Kody had directly agreed to financial choices in Robyn's favor. His contradictions under duress made him appear less a leader and more a man desperately attempting to defend Robyn. The jury did not miss it, nor did the judge. Outside of the courtroom, the fans were split. Some were behind Christine, applauding her courage for taking on the favoritism that had long been rumored. Others were with Robyn, adamant she was being singled out unfairly. Social media was abuzz with hashtags such as #Justice for Christine and #Team Robyn. But within the courtroom, the truth was unfolding day by day. When Christine's attorneys delivered their closing arguments, they didn't just emphasize the money. They emphasized the larger picture. This case is not only about fraud, it's about betrayal. Christine gave decades of her life to this family. She trusted that resources would be shared equally. Instead, she was deceived. While Christine struggled to provide for her children, Robyn lived comfortably off funds that weren't hers alone. This isn't just unfair, it's unlawful. And today you have the power to make it right. Christine brushed away tears, her hand covering her heart. For the first time in years, she felt understood. Robyn, S attorneys portrayed Christine as resentful, motivated by anger and a need to embarrass. Robyn herself wept again during her closing statement, saying, "I just wanted a family. I never asked for this. Christine is attacking me because she couldn't accept me. Please don't let her destroy everything we built." But her words sounded scripted, empty in contrast with the huge stack of evidence against her. Before sending the jury off to deliberate, the judge made a striking comment. "This is a family affair. Yes, but it is also a matter of law. No one is beyond accountability. Not even reality TV personalities. The evidence has to lead you, not feelings." The courtroom was quiet, the jury excused themselves to deliberate, and the air outside the courthouse was a taut wire. TV crews rolled as fans guessed the verdict. Christine quietly sat in the courtroom, her eyes closed, murmuring a prayer. Robyn sat in the back of the room, still wiping tears from her eyes, Kody whispering angrily into her ear. Hours became what seemed like days. Each passing tick of the clock brought the Browns closer to a decision that would forever alter their existence. Would Christine at last receive the justice she so rightfully deserved, or would Robyn be able to get away with it once more? The world held its breath. When the judge finally read the verdict, the courtroom was silent. Robyn Brown was found guilty of fraud and ordered to pay Christine Brown $750,000. Christine gasped, putting her hand over her mouth in shock. To her, it wasn't about money. It was about validation. After years of feeling dismissed, she now had evidence that she wasn't crazy, that the injustice she lived with was real. Robyn cried uncontrollably. Her world shattered. The woman who was Kody's favorite, who was always untouchable, was now humiliated in public. And Kody, he was livid. His face burning with fury, he cursed under his breath, shaking his head in shock. For once he could not dictate the narrative. The court had rendered its decision, and nothing could change that. This ruling was not about money. It was a symbolic realignment. Robyn, once the most influential wife, had been brought down, and Christine, once rendered disposable, was standing tall as the winner. The courtroom was silent, not the kind of silence that sits comfortably, but the oppressive, overwhelming silence that weighs heavily on your chest. You could hear every cough, every rustle of papers, every anxious breath. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the double doors as the jurors marched back in, faces inscrutable. Christine sat at her table, fingers locked in her lap. Her knuckles shone white, her mouth stretched thin over her teeth. This was the day she'd waited for, not merely months of court fights, but years of unspoken hurt. Her whole life spent within the Brown household, every slight, every betrayal, every hardship, it all led to here. Across the aisle, Robyn wiped tears from her eyes with a tissue, muttering to Kody, who sat stiff and fuming, his jaw locked. The jury studiously avoided eye contact with both sides as they retook their seats. That in itself gave everyone watching the willies. The judge pushed up his glasses, his tone calm. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict?" The foreperson rose, grasping the paper that would turn it all around. The voice of the foreperson rang out through the courtroom, each word a knife. In the matter of Christine Brown Verve, Robyn Brown, on the charge of fraudulent misappropriation of jointly held marital funds, we, the jury, find the defendant, Robyn Brown, liable. A communal gasp ran through the room. Christine's eyes filled with tears at once, tears streaming down her face. She put her hands over her face, overwhelmed. For years she had been silenced, belittled, ignored, and now, at last, she had been heard. The foreperson went on. "We also award damages of $750,000 to the plaintiff Christine Brown." The words hung suspended in the air like a crack of thunder. $750,000. A figure so precise, so enormous, it drove home the enormity of the fraud. This was no slap on the wrist. This was justice. The courtroom erupts. The room burst open. Gasps, murmurs, even shouts reverberated as onlookers grappled with what they'd just heard. In front of the courthouse, reporters scrambled to break the news. Social media went live in real time. #Christine wins. #Robyn exposed. #justice served trended in minutes. Christine's lawyers embraced her tightly, their faces beaming with relief. Janelle, who had sat unobtrusively at the trial in the back row, was unable to hold back tears of joy. She mouthed, "You did it," to Christine, her encouragement unshaken. But on the opposing side of the courtroom, things were considerably different. Robyn's tears dried into melodramatic sobs, then into hysterical panicked crying. She trembled, grasping Kody's arm, and whimpered, "This is not fair. They don't understand." And Kody's face was flushed with rage. He banged his hand on the table, earning a warning look from the bailiff. His masterfully crafted image as the self-assured patriarch was broken in that instant, replaced by raw, uncontrolled fury. The judge's final words. When the murmurs died down, the judge leaned forward, his voice stern. "This court has heard the evidence, and the jury has rendered their verdict. Mrs. Robyn Brown, you have been found liable for fraudulent activities that deprived Christine Brown and her children of financial support to which they were entitled. You are hereby ordered to pay restitution in the sum of $750,000. This verdict is final." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the courtroom. "Let this be a reminder. Family, faith, and TV appearances do not make anyone immune to the law. Justice for all." The gavel came down, hard and definitive. Christine's relief. Christine sobbed. But they were not tears of pain, tears of release. A weight she had carried so long had finally been removed. She shut her eyes, whispering, thank you, God." Reporters yelled out questions as she exited the courtroom, but Christine provided only a brief, sincere statement. "I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for fairness. For my kids and for every woman ever told that her voice doesn't matter. Today the truth came out, and that means everything." Her words resonated well beyond the courthouse. Supporters overwhelmed social media with posts offering encouragement. Women throughout the nation cheered her bravery. Christine was no longer a reality TV personality. She was a beacon of strength, of standing against injustice, even if it's perpetrated by your own family. Robyn's collapse meanwhile. Robyn's departure was messy. Surrounded by attorneys and an angry Kody, she dissolved totally, weeping uncontrollably as cameras blazed away. Her lacquered virginal image shattered. Rather than sympathy, most recognized manipulation for what it was. Kody lashed out at reporters, yelling that Christine had destroyed the family and blamed the system for being unfair. His rant only added to the backlash. For years, viewers had suspected favoritism, deception, and financial impropriety. Now they believed they had been justified. "Christine wasn't bitter," tweeted one viewer. "She was right. The ruling did not merely strike Robyn's bank account. Something shattered the entire Brown family unit." The $750,000 in damages set before her did not merely bring financial ruin, but public shame as well. Sponsors and business ventures tied to her ventures started pulling out. TLC, already suffering from the controversies of the family, fell silent, wondering how to address the shock. Behind closed doors, Robyn and Kody rushed to determine how they would cover the damages. Rumors of selling assets, cashing in assets, and even bankruptcy started going around. While Robyn and Kody schemed damage control, however, Christine celebrated a new beginning. Christine's victory lap. A few days after the verdict, Christine had a small press conference outside her new house. Flanked by supportive friends and family members, she beamed. "This not about money," she said, beaming. "It's about freedom. It's about understanding that when you battle for truth, even when the odds are stacked against you, justice wins. I'm moving ahead with hope, with joy, and with thanksgiving." Her words were strong, but her presence was stronger. Gone was that Christine who had once lived in Robyn's shadow. In her place was a woman empowered, unshackled, and ready to take on the future. The media circus didn't let up. Talk shows argued the aftermath. Podcasts picked apart the evidence. Headlines blared. Robyn exposed. Sister wives. Star ordered to pay Christine $750K. Christine Brown's victory. A new era of freedom. Kody loses it. How the verdict transformed everything. Public opinion was simple.
Christine was the heroine of this tale. Robyn was the villain. And Kody, he was the enabler who had finally been accused. Within the dysfunctional family, the verdict heightened the splits. Janelle openly endorsed Christine, participating in family events with her and publicly celebrating her victory. Meri again conflicted, attempted to remain neutral but could not deny the reality. Kody and Robyn grew increasingly isolated, though their efforts to gain sympathy fell short. Even within the family, there were murmurs of bitterness. Some of the children were said to have had words with Kody, asking him why Robyn was permitted to take resources while others went without. The Brown family was not just broken, it was shattered. Weeks following the verdict, Christine posted a moving video to fans. She was sitting in her living room, composed and confident, talking directly to the camera. "I want to thank all of you who stood with me. This wasn't simple. It was hard. It was bruising. But it was worth it. I don't tell this for drama. I tell this because I know there are people out there fighting their own war, feeling unheard, feeling invisible. To those of them I say, don't give up. Your truth is important. Your voice is important. Your voice is important." The video went viral, being seen by millions of people. Christine's message of empowerment struck far outside of the realm of sister wives. Ultimately, the decision wasn't really one of finances. It was about redefining the narrative of Christine Brown. For years she had been defined as the quiet wife, the one pushed aside
by Robyn's arrival and by Kody's favorites. But now she was the woman who stood up for herself, fought back, and emerged victorious. The gavel had dropped, but its reverberation would be heard for years to come. Christine Brown finally got her justice. And Robyn? She got her comeuppance. Following the verdict, the blowback was swift. Christine's fans cheered on social media, labeling her brave and courageous for standing up to decades of manipulation. Praise hashtags for Christine went trending on all social media platforms, with supporters declaring justice had at last been done. For Robyn and Kody, though, the nightmare had only just started. $750,000 isn't peanuts, and rumors circulate that they might have to sell land, liquidate properties, or even tap into family businesses to pay for the damages. The pressure is astronomical, and it's straining their relationship even further. While that was happening, Janelle stood resolutely by Christine, the two of them more united than ever. Christine and Janelle's combined opposition has left Kody and Robyn at loggerheads. What was a polygamous family founded on assumed togetherness is now a war zone of alliances and betrayals. Kody's rage hasn't diminished. He feels shamed, exposed, and helpless. For a man who was accustomed to dictating to his wives and his household, this deprivation of power is life-shattering. And fans were waiting with bated breath, eager to find out how much more he and Robyn were going to unravel with the pressure. The verdict had been read. The gavel had fallen. The cameras snapped one final time, as Christine Brown exited that courtroom with her head held high. But as theatrical as the trial had been, the real drama was only just starting. The aftermath of the decision sent shockwaves among the Brown family, the viewers, and even the destiny of sister wives. It wasn't merely a $750,000 win for Christine. It was about freedom. The burden of decades of financial disparity had ultimately been relieved. For the first time in decades, she felt that her life was hers alone to own. During the weeks after the verdict, Christine gave glimpses of her newly acquired freedom. She posted on social media images of traveling with her children, sharing dinners without worrying about paying the bills, and even venturing into business possibilities of her own. Her laughter, previously clouded for years, now sounded truer than ever. But it was not just about the material transformation. Christine's attitude had changed. She no longer regarded herself as the wife who lived in Robyn's shadow. She was a survivor, a fighter, and most importantly, a role model. Women and fans all over the country saw themselves in Christine's story, particularly women who had felt undervalued or overlooked in their own relationships. Christine spoke in interviews, not to brag, but to motivate. On one morning show, she stated, "I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because I had to prove to myself, to my kids, and to anyone watching, that silence isn't the answer. When you're wronged, you have the right to stand up. And when you stand tall, sometimes, the world listens. Her testimony made her something more than a reality TV persona. She became an empowerment voice. But in Robyn's case, the aftermath of the verdict were merciless. Once shown to be the sweetheart daughter, she was now being cast as the villain. Her emotional courtroom appeals hadn't moved the jury, and now they didn't move the public. Tabloids published vicious headlines. Robyn's lies exposed. From favorite wife to fraud defendant. Robyn's empire crumbles under $750K verdict. Her reputation suffered a huge blow. Sponsorships and collaborations she was anticipating vanished overnight. Even fan sites that had stood by her in the past started distancing themselves, unable to justify the evidence that had been exposed in court. Finances-wise, the losses were crippling. $750,000 was not merely a figure, it was a heavy burden. Rumors abounded that she and Kody were desperate to refinance houses, sell assets, and even file for bankruptcy. What was initially a life of luxury and favoritism soon turned into a survival struggle. But the hardest hit wasn't monetary. It was to Robyn's personal image. Robyn's carefully nurtured persona of innocence and victimhood was destroyed. Fans no longer perceived her as misunderstood. They viewed her as manipulative, self-serving, and willing to betray the very women she had termed sister wives. If Robyn was guilty, then Kody was exposed. His trial testimony had shown just how much he had enabled Robyn to carry on as she was. His favoritism, previously dismissed as rumor, was now clearly apparent. Following the verdict, Kody ranted publicly. He attacked the system, the jury, and called Christine out for attempting to destroy the family. But his hot-headed rants only served to make him appear diminutive. Fans didn't fall for it. They observed a man grasping at any means necessary to protect his personal last wife standing, even if that meant sacrificing truth. Within the family, Kody's authority fell apart. Most of the grown children stood up to him, asking him to explain why their lives had been forfeited for Robyn's ease. His former dignified reputation as the patriarch of a cohesive plural household was in shambles. For the first time, Kody was not simply losing wives. He was losing respect. Janelle stood in support of Christine. She went to parties with her, gave public testimonies of how Christine's bravery had enlightened her, and even suggested going out and doing her own independent financial enterprises. For Janelle, the trial had awakened her. She too had witnessed the inequalities. And now, since Christine had blazed the trail, she felt more liberated than ever to enter her own authority. Meri, as ever, was more complex. Caught between family loyalty and compassion for Christine, she tried to stay neutral. But even Meri could not ignore the facts. Although she did not cheer Christine's victory as vocally as Janelle, she quietly conceded that justice had been done. For Meri, the verdict was a call to arms, a reminder of how long she had endured being pushed aside. Outside of the family, the decision was a cultural touchstone. Christine's fans filled social media with words of encouragement. Podcasts devoted entire shows to breaking down the trial, and YouTubers produced breakdown videos with tens of millions of views. Christine was a hero to women everywhere, a beacon of freedom from abusive relationships, financial exploitation, and patriarchal domination. Her story ran on major websites, linking her battle to bigger themes of economic abuse and women's rights. #TeamChristine, #JusticeForChristine, and #Robyn Exposed dominated Twitter for weeks. Memes mocked Kody's courtroom anger, while emotional posts expressed how Christine's bravery inspired them to confront their own demons. This was no longer a reality television scandal. It was now a cultural moment. The controversy also shadowed TLC's popular show in a dark light. With Christine's explosive win making news headlines, viewers asked how, if at all, the show could keep going. Could TLC just ignore the trial? Could they spin it? Or would they go all in, flipping the cameras back on for what would be its most dramatic season yet? There were rumors that producers were already having crisis meetings. Certain sources said Christine was being courted with offers for her own spin-off,
a show that would chronicle her new life since Kody, with an emphasis on independence and victory. Others believed the initial Sister Wives series was also dying, its key family too broken to make another season work. Either way, the verdict had ensured that Christine, not Robyn, would be the face of the franchise moving forward. In the end, Christine's legacy wasn't about the $750,000. It wasn't about winning a case or defeating Robyn. It was about reclaiming her voice after years of being silenced. Her trip became a model for others. Evidence that it is always worth leaving bad situations behind, no matter how impossible it seems. Evidence that in the midst of manipulation, favoritism, and betrayal, the truth can prevail. Fans didn't only worship Christine, they identified with her. They regarded her as a person who had gone through fire and emerged triumphant. A person who had conquered pain and transformed it into power. A person who had reclaimed her story. And what of Robyn? Even after the ruling, she went on insisting that she was being misconstrued. Weeks later, in a tearful livestream, she said Christine had dramatized, that the jury had been moved by emotion, and that she was the actual victim. But it was done. The world no longer perceived her as the innocent wife. They perceived her as the woman who had sucked money out of the family behind a veil of excuses. Her efforts at rebuilding her image were for naught. Sponsors didn't come back. Fans didn't trust her. Even within the family, Robyn lost support. For Robyn, the verdict wasn't only a financial setback, it was the death of her credibility. The Browns were never the same. The trial had torn open sores that could never be closed. Christine was free, Janelle was inspired, Meri was conflicted, and Kody and Robyn were alone. What had started as a family united in one man's vision of plural marriage ended in courtrooms, verdicts, and a broken legacy. And yet, for Christine, it was a new start. Months following the trial, Christine produced a sincere video message to her supporters. She sat in her sunny living room, staring directly at the camera. "I want them to understand this. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. Fighting back doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you're picking yourself. For far too long I thought that I had to give everything up for everyone else. But now I know that my own happiness counts too. And so does yours." She tried to smile and her voice shook a little, but her eyes flashed with strength. "This chapter is finished. And I'm ready to write the next one." With those statements, Christine didn't merely close the book on the Browns, she began writing a new one altogether. One in which she was no longer a supporting actor, but the star. The echo of the gavel may be silenced, but its effect will never be erased. The decision didn't merely alter Christine's story, it altered the entire story of Sister Wives. It made viewers face the reality behind the cameras. It revealed favoritism, manipulation, and deception. But above all, it proved something much greater. Justice, though tardy, can still reach you. Christine's struggle transcended a court battle. It transcended a case. It became a tale of hope, empowerment, and survival. A tale that will be read many years after the Browns disappear from reality television. And in that tale, Christine is not only a wife. Christine is not only a plaintiff. She's the woman who got up, said something, and prevailed.